Hey everybody, it's Tequila Papi with the Iron Tequila Podcast. I want to thank you all for joining in today to listen to episode 7 on what's killing men's edge. We had a great conversation. I wanted to drop the content that we were able to capture. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties and lost about the last third of the show. We lost the video and the audio, but I really wanted to get out the content that we were able to capture because we had a great conversation, and hopefully there's enough in this episode that you can benefit from. It was good stuff, so hopefully we can recover the data that we lost and I can post it at a little later date. But for now, thanks again for joining, and please drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on our conversation today on what's killing men's edge.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Iron and Tequila Podcast. We're excited you're here for the next episode of the 5 truths that men need to hear now. And today, Jordan, we're talking about some pretty important aspects of the 5 truths that men need to hear. And these are very poignant, very relevant, especially in today's society. 2025, what with the technology, information age, and so forth. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that we often talk about on the show is the concept that soft times create soft men create hard times create hard men, and we're kind of at the point now where we're living in a society, in a place in time where we have a society full of soft men. So some of the topics we're going to be talking about today are specifically about what's killing men's edge these days.
Yep. This is Tequila Papi. I'm Jordan Martis. Thank you for being here.
Welcome back.
Let's get into it here. Men going soft is not a new thing, right? This has been happening since we have been alive as human beings.
Kind of part of the evolutionary process, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It takes all kinds, is the old axiom. And so within that, we have a spectrum, from men who are the typical masculine and maybe go beyond the typical masculine and into isolation, a mountain man, for example, right? And then the other end, a 35-year-old guy who has never had a job, has lived in his parents' basement, overmothered since he was a baby.
Yeah.
Please don't take offense to this. This is something that is really challenging if you're in one of these positions. We want to help you figure out how to move forward, not tell you that you're worthless. That's not our point here, okay? We're going to deal with some very difficult things, and if you're in a position, both Papi and I have been in some of these situations. Porn addiction, yes. Booze, yes.
Yeah.
Junk food, yes. These are things that are normal in men's lives, okay? And what we're talking about is addiction. At the bottom line, when we're talking about addiction, it's not just drugs. It could be screens, could be social media, could be gambling, could be food. It doesn't really matter what it is. And really, we are all addicts when it comes down to it. Try not breathing. We're all addicted to air.
Or eating.
We're all addicted to food.
Yeah.
Mahatma Gandhi did a 30-day fast to end some pretty major things going on in India. But I'm not Gandhi. I'm guessing you're not either. So the addiction, really, at the end of the day, we lose our own independence and sovereignty over our lives.
Yeah, we surrender our potential at the same time. Mm-hmm. And some of those addictions that we're talking about, and we're going to cover some of them a little bit more in depth. You mentioned porn addiction, there's video game addictions, there's all different types of addictions, social media addictions. You got people addicted to isolation. You already mentioned isolation, sure. But they're addicted to poor credit, poor spending, financial management habits. They're addicted to complacency, comfort,
yep.
To taking the easy route, to avoiding challenges, avoiding conversation. So there's all types of addictions.
Yep.
But fundamentally, what we're talking about today is the effect on your potential for growth and for personal progress and self-development, some of these impediments that get in your way and prevent your progress.
Yeah, growth. The three main ones, we've kind of thrown them into a few categories. The first that we're going to go through is porn. And that we're kind of lumping in screen with porn because at this point, everything's available today instantly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're, a 9-year-old or a 39-year-old, you can get it now. And what that does to people is increase the addiction feedback loop, right? And porn, social media, screens, it's a big one. It's the cheap dopamine that we keep talking about here, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just a screen.
Yeah, it's that instant gratification kind of mindset that our society promotes. We're all kind of we're wrapped up into the vortex of the society of easy access to everything. Everything's available. Click of a button, and so when things are made easy, we talk about the evolutionary process. We adapt as humans. We adapt to the easy routes.
Yeah.
And it becomes very easy to spend way too much time on some of those things that are easily accessible that don't provide any benefit to your life.
In that process, what I've done, and I know what you've done as well, is in our social interactions start to limit those. We'll get to more of things that we can do, some tools we can put in our tool belt a little later. But limiting this stuff is really, it comes down to self-control and discipline. But the bad end of that, we start to poison our relationships with porn.
We're poisoning our own mind, our own self-development,
Yes.
as well as relationships, work relationships, intimate relationships, friends, family members. So every relationship can be affected by these types of addictions that are unhealthy. They're unhealthy.
Yep.
Everything in moderation, right? But maybe not everything. We're not necessarily advocating for everything in moderation,
right?
Because there's a law of diminishing returns that kicks in with that. But as you stated, we're all kind of have our own addictive personalities, and you just have to find a way to moderate the exposure that you have and the negative effects that it has on your life.
Well, the porn and social media screen time, that's a personal thing. The next one we're going to get into is drugs and booze. And a lot of times those can be either individual, sitting at home drinking because you don't want to spend the money out at a bar, potentially, I've done that. Or potentially going out to the bars with friends, right? Having the social aspect and spending tons of our money, on the booze.
Talk about the social aspect. Being out and being social, if you're hanging out with a group of friends or peers, coworkers, whomever, and they are, excessively drinking or consuming drugs or other unhealthy lifestyles, you become caught into that vortex of that lifestyle as well. And so if you're not managing who you're hanging out with, it's very easy for you to succumb to kind of conform to the group think.
Right. Peer pressure is what it comes down to, and we're all 15 years old in our heads at times, right? Especially later in the day, we're tired, right? Maybe we've already had a drink or two. It's very easy to say yes to the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. And depending on your nature of addictive behavior, more.
Well, let's face it. We're all living in it's challenging times for a lot of people. It's emotionally straining. It's mentally, physically straining, and people are looking for ways to escape the pressure and the stress of life. And so it's very easy to take the path of least resistance, to avoid challenges in your life, and to just lose yourself in those short dopamine hits that kind of take your mind away from the stressors of life. And it's a lot easier to just sit at home and have, throw back 10 whiskeys,
take the edge off,
than it is to actually sit down and problem solve.
That takes discipline. That takes actually facing the situation we're in with brutal honesty. And we've talked about this before. If you haven't seen our previous the 5 truths for men, being honest with ourselves is like one of the major key points.
It's a major tenet
of how we function as human beings, and specifically men, to develop our lives in the direction we choose versus the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and to kind of expand on that point too, Jordan, I think it's a matter of, or do you become a victim or a, you're kind of a victim of your external circumstances, or you succumb to these easy habits and you surrender to them. And it's kind of a surrendership mentality versus a more proactive and more confrontational, problem-solving mindset, right?
And this is where men have an advantage, because we're up for a confrontation, typically, right? A challenge, I can overcome. A problem is a little bit different. So the way I view it, the way I pose the circumstances or the context that I'm facing is paramount here, and it depends on how we were brought up as children. We'll talk more about the beliefs, values, principles, and all of that, how it affects this. But if we were brought up that it's acceptable to sit in front of a television for 6 hours a day, or a screen for 6 hours, I don't know how many kids, what percentage of children right now are babysat with these.
Yeah.
You walk around a grocery store or any place where you're in public and you have a child, especially at a restaurant, and they're glued to this thing.
Well, parents, check your kids. If your kids have cell phones and they're young, check their screen time usage, and you'll probably be surprised at how much time kids these days are spending on screen time. Yeah. And not just kids, adults too. But as adults, we have the capacity to deviate from that on our own. Kids lack the mental capacity to recognize, hey, this might be a problem, and put forth some actions that might, get them off of that path. But as adults, we have that capacity.
If we choose to institute it and become as a result of our awareness. One of the guys that I like to study is Joe Dispenza. We've talked about it a little bit, but Dispenza goes through essentially how neural pathways are established, and that's repeated thought, simply put. And a child has no real restriction or restraint or discipline about those repeated thoughts. And so that's a process of positive reinforcement. And it doesn't matter if it's a negative behavior or a positive behavior, as long as it's reinforced, those neural pathways in our brains are going to become stronger and stronger pipelines, if you will.
It's like working out. Exactly. You want to build your biceps. You pump iron, and that repetition builds up muscles. If conversely, what you're talking about is building strength of those neuro pathways, they can be both positively strengthened. So you think about, hey, I'm studying for a spelling bee, or I'm studying for the Series 7, stockbroker license. Right. I had to focus. I had to reinforce my brain with these principles, with these the important things that I had to remember for the test. That's positive reinforcement, and we're all familiar with that. We've all studied for tests. We've all had to perform on a speech or something where we're prepared, and we intentionally reinforce those neurotransmitters in a positive way. Well, on the other hand, if you're spending all your time on negative, unhealthy, negative reinforcements of those neurotransmitters, then those are the muscles, if you will, the neurotransmitters that will become stronger.
The subject matter is irrelevant. It's the habit of repeating thought over time, and eventually that becomes the path of least resistance. Right? We can also do this in the positive light, where we start to change our perspective on things. We start to change the way we approach things, which makes all the difference in the world. There's many authors throughout history who have written on the habits, Brian Tracy,
Jim Rohn,
all kinds of these people, Bob Proctor, The Secret, Rhonda Byrne. A few of the guys that I like to study, Joe Dispenza, I mentioned,
Tony Robbins,
all of these leaders, right?
And if you're not listening, it's some of these guys.
If you don't know who they are,
and gals, start some positive reinforcement by listening to them on a regular basis. It'll help you build and strengthen those positive neurotransmitters.
Yep. So in this process, these habits, the addictions, the porn, the booze, and the last one we're going to get to here are three major ones, the junk food. These are prohibiting factors to our self-empowerment.
And our personal and self-development.
Yeah. They're extremely limiting at times. You know, when we have junk food and sugar running through our veins all the time, we're not going to have as much focus. We're not going to have as much discipline, right? The booze and the drugs, obviously, right? Screen time, things like that. And the porn, I mean, it steals our energy, steals our motivation, and puts us in a position of a personal choice that we know is disempowering, yet we choose to ignore.
Well, and how many people have you and I come across throughout our lives who say, you ask them, what are your goals? Maybe it's a college student or something. What are your goals? Well, I want to be a this, or I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a doctor. I want to, we have all these lofty goals. Well, and then the next question I always ask them is, well, how do you plan on getting there? And if they are addicted to any of these things that we're talking about, that's an impediment to their progress towards achieving their goal. And I personally have talked to many people, especially men over the years, when I ask those kinds of questions, and the response is, I say, well, what do you like to do in your free time? Well, I play video games, Call of Duty or
football.
I watch, Saturday, Sunday, it's football season.
Football.
Right.
Tuesday through Sunday.
Yeah.
Tuesday through Monday.
Right.
Thursday through Monday.
I'm watching 30 hours worth of football.
Exactly.
I like watching football too, but I choose to not invest my time in that much of something that isn't benefiting me or providing me an opportunity for progress.
Yep. If you're broke, stop spending your time doing things that are not earning you money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's plain and simple, yet implementing that progress through discipline in our lives is not as easy as it seems.
Well, because it's not the path of least resistance.
Exactly.
We're human. We're humans, and human nature is to be lazy.
Yeah.
We are lazy creatures by nature, and all of these technological advances has made it easier to be lazy.
Yeah.
And you think about 100 years ago when the man had to get up at their butt crack of dawn and go out and feed the animals and go sling an axe for 10 hours to chop firewood to keep the house warm. He had to go hunt for another 5 hours. He came home just exhausted, and but all of his energy was spent on survival.
Yep.
And fast forward, that was maybe not even 100 years ago. That was kind of the expectation of living in that time. But you fast forward to today, we don't do any of that. I haven't chopped wood in a while. I haven't had to hunt for food out of necessity or survival ever.
Right.
I do. Yeah. And so we now occupy our time with things that aren't survival based or progress based, but are ways to escape things that we should otherwise be confronting.
Yeah.
And so what we've done in that process is establish habits of avoidance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point.
Let's stick our head in the sand and just pretend things will go away. Hey, my goal is to be a doctor, but I don't want to study. I'd rather play video games and go out and drink with the frat guys and stay up till 4 a.m. and then I end up dropping out of med school and become a checker at Walmart.
Yep. It takes all kinds, and sometimes those results are out of our control due to some things that each of us have experienced, having the rug pulled out from underneath our feet in a marriage, or my experience of having my mom killed by a gentleman who wanted the experience, right? And these are out of our control. One of the books that we've been discussing lately is on the personal finance called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Mm-hmm. And he goes into some more life psychology that kind of relates to money as opposed to money exclusively. It's fascinating. If you haven't read it, we'll put it in the show notes here. These are fun things that we like to bring up because they can enhance your study and development and ours as well.
And therefore your life.
your life.
Starting now. And
the second you choose to change it.
We often promote the slow, incremental progress every day.
Yep.
Look for an opportunity to make progress, whether it's in, limiting your exposure to these unhealthy lifestyle habits that you currently have,
yep.
or focusing on building wealth, like the book you just talked about, The Psychology of Money, or creating a better version of yourself. Fitness and healthy eating, healthy living, healthy lifestyle, and in relationships, not only with your significant other or your romantic partner, but in your work relationships and your friend relationships, your groups and your community relationships.
The most important one there are the relationships with ourselves. And this is where, in my opinion, we talked about it before we started here today, starting off the day with some sort of prayer or meditation.
Yeah.
Right? And ending the day with prayer or meditation, right? And the subject of those is extremely important.
It's reinforcing those positive neurotransmitters.
Or going away from the reinforced previously, which is extremely challenging because our path of least resistance is pull out the phone, right? More screen time, or shit, I'm horny. What's going to stop?
What's Tinder saying tonight?
Or the junk food. I mean, getting one of the guys that I've worked with for a lot of years on my logistics team. For years and years and years, his breakfast was Fruity Pebbles.
Hey, they're great though. By the way, I love them. But discipline, right? It's about discipline and choosing. For me, I do love them. Fruity Pebbles are great. But it's always about choose your heart. It's hard to not eat Fruity Pebbles because they're great, but it's also hard to live with the effects, the cumulative effects on your health from having eaten them for many years.
Yeah.
And it's not just Fruity Pebbles, it's anything that's unhealthy.
Yeah, the alcohol, the sugar-based stuff, the complex carbohydrates that don't have any actual food.
Fat, high fat.
More fats, more proteins that are necessary, everything in balance is really challenging to approach because our backgrounds, our experiences don't necessarily are not necessarily welcomed to being analyzed, and understood and accepted ourselves. It's convoluted, man.
Well, tough. Talking about this junk food subject, we had a couple of show notes here that what are some of the side effects of being addicted to junk food? We're not talking about, every once in a while.
Welcome to the Iron Tequila Podcast. We're your hosts, Tequila Papi and Jordan Martis. In the coming weeks, we'll be starting our new series on the 21 life skills that you need to master that will pay you forever.
This is going to be things like the ability to sell and negotiate. Sales is one of the highest paid skills in the world, especially high ticket. Communication between people. If you can increase your communication skills and learn how to listen better, people will like you more. Also, things like perspective, understanding others and clarifying your own. Discipline and discernment are also part of this, and we'll talk about all these.
We'll be diving deeper into these subjects and as well as all 21 of the life skills that you need to master to pay you forever. Join us in the coming weeks. You're not going to want to miss this one on the Iron and Tequila Podcast.